Hey everybody, it's Kneecap here, and in this video we're going to be talking about the Cartel chips and all of the negative attention that they are getting, and how much backlash Blizzard is getting from the implementation, well, the soon-to-be implementation of the Cartel chips. I wanted to do this video even though it's been a little bit since the news came out, because when I did the news video I was just given the update of when it was coming out and stuff, and I was personally excited about it because for me the Cartel chips are going to work fine for me and the type of content that I do. And so I was just giving the news just straightforward off the top of my head, my thoughts and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the criticisms are very valid, and I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it and also feedback. That's a big thing I like to do, is kind of give feedback and maybe possible solutions or compromises and things like this. So if you don't know what the Cartel chips are, I'm here in Shadowlands in World of Warcraft, and these are the original Dinar guys next to the vault here. So Dinars were the first iteration of this. In Shadowlands Season 4, that was basically put together by just a couple devs, they added these Dinars so people could get their, in a much shorter season, make sure that they get like their best loot. They were very popular. For me, I went from having a jailer weapon in season 3 to having a jailer weapon in season 4, the faded season or whatever it was called. And so for me, it was very, very nice. And I believe the way it worked in that is you had to have killed the boss to upgrade it to a certain level or something like that. Similar to the way it is now, but you could like get it kind of like instantly or something like that. I'm having trouble remember exactly what it was like, but I know I basically just continued using the jailer weapon. So I got the jailer weapon from killing Mythic Jailer in season 3, and then in season 4 I got like the heroic one automatically, which with the eye level increase was going to be better, because from killing heroic jailer, and then was able to upgrade that to mythic eventually as well. And then in Dragonflight, and this is where the big disconnect comes. In Dragonflight they did the Bouillon system. And this was a little bit different from the Dinar because now anybody could get it as long as you had the crest. So you basically bought the item at a super low level, and as long as you had the crest and stuff, you could just force it up eye level until you got to max eye level. So basically everybody got a free piece of best in slot mythic loot. And I actually think that is overall fine as well. I'm not going to actually pick a side necessarily here because I think it's fine either way. But I think messaging matters and intent, letting know your intent matters and stuff like that. So once again, when I made my video, I was just kind of reporting the news. Hey, these things are coming out May 13th. I'm pretty excited. Look at all this other cool stuff, and everything else was pretty cool. That's coming out with that, the power boost and stuff like that. That's going to be coming to gear and improvements of delves and stuff like that. But one thing, sometimes in the moment, right, it's hard for me to realize that, like, okay, so for me, I knew the Cartel chips were supposed to be bad luck protection. So when they said you had to have killed the boss on Mythic to get the Mythic eye level, that made sense to me because I knew that. Why did I know that? Because I watched the interview where the dev said that. However, a very, very small percent of the player base either watches the interview or reads a transcript of the interview and stuff like that. It's a very, very small number of people that do that. I'm very plugged in because I'm, consuming a lot of the game. I enjoy the game very much, and I'm like at like a very high level, like not high level as far as just like doing Mythic Raid, but like high level as far as like a high amount, just a lot of World of Warcraft information that I consume. And so for me, it's like, okay, yeah, I know it's supposed to be bad luck protection, but a lot of people probably are like, well, I figured it was going to be like Dragonflight, and that's a perfectly logical way to think about it, because why wouldn't you think that? Why wouldn't they be similar to the last time they were out instead of more restrictive than the last time that they were out? So for me, again, I kind of knew it was going to be bad luck protection already, but others didn't. I tried to find blue posts about it. I couldn't find any old blue posts saying it was going to be bad luck protection. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but it might just literally be that dev interview, or maybe there was a couple other dev interviews that were even less publicized than this one. This is the one, I believe, with Liquid and Max that a dev did, and talked a little bit about the Cartel chips and his thinking and design of them and stuff like that. So ultimately, what I think the major issue is, so people are mad because basically a lot of the player base isn't going to interact with these at any meaningful level. Now, some people are going to interact with them on the heroic level. However, the reality is, and this is just reality, it's easier to get gear in Mythic Plus. So if you're a PvE player, you can do +10s, and you might have a Mythic weapon or a Mythic trinket or something, and it's better than the heroic version from the raid, but it's not better than the Mythic version from the raid. And so there's this weird thing where it's like it's so easy to do +10s, but even putting together a group and doing heroic raid is actually much harder than that. And so you have this disconnect where very few people, as a part of the whole player base, are going to get to interact with the actual fully upgraded version of these cartel chips, the fully upgraded best in slot items. Now, when I say a low amount of people, it's still a lot of people. A lot of people Mythic raid, and a lot of people, relative to other games and stuff like that, right? A lot of people do Mythic raid. Hundreds of thousands of people do Mythic raid to some degree or another. At least kill a boss or two in Mythic raid. And so it is a lot of people that will get to interact with it. But at a meaningful level, it will be even smaller than that. It'll be less people that kill like One Armed Bandit or Gallywix, which a lot of the best in slot loot will come from him. It'll be a much smaller number than that, than the hundreds of thousands. It might be 100,000 or something like that, right? Or somewhere in there. It'll be more than that. It's usually, a lot of times it's like 2,000 guilds. So, 20, yeah. So it'll be less than 100,000 people that interact with that, which is a lot of people still, right? But compared to the entire player base, it's actually a very small percent. So I also get that too, because on top of that, there's nothing coming out for the other forms of content. There's no special chips to make you get your gear from your Delve. There's no special chips to make you get your gear from your Mythic Plus. There's no, in PvP you don't really need this this type of system, but in any PvE setting, there's no type of thing that's going to automatically give you the thing that you want, right? Whereas a Mythic Raider is going to get that. So it's a very there's like a elitism factor to this, where it's like, oh, this is just for the 1%, this is just for the high end players, this is terrible, this is just for the raiders. There's some hatred for against raiding and stuff like that, and there's those people will always try to make this, well, we should just get rid of raids or make raids 5-man, or the big thing is 10-man, but I have started to see people saying 5-man, and it's just kind of gets to this crazy point where people who don't want to put in any effort to do things, like just want to get rid of the other people who are putting in effort to do it in a weird way. I don't know what that's all about. That's some psychology thing, and I'm not a psychologist. But yeah, it turns into that. But the initial point of that, I do understand, where it's only one group is actually getting the thing. Now, since we have had some time since this came out, and I've just been busy, and I'm finally getting around to making this video, and I wanted to get my thoughts out there. I have seen some solutions and some thoughts on this, and I've seen a lot of good ones as well. And one thing I saw was that maybe everybody can get or the best one, in my opinion, I saw, and I saw multiple people say this. I can't give it credit to just one person. I saw multiple people say this, is that if you defeat the boss on heroic, you can upgrade it to mythic. If you defeat the boss on normal or LFR or whatever, you can upgrade it to heroic. So and I personally would be fine if you just said normal too. So basically, if you step into the raid, maybe you just step into normal, then you can get 2 pieces of heroic best in slot. If you step into heroic and clear heroic, then you can get 2 pieces of mythic best in slot. I think that's actually a really good solution to this, because the idea would be to get even more people to give raiding a chance, or give a guild a chance, or give a group a chance, and things like this. So I think that would actually be a really good solution. It still would not, help people who only do Mythic Plus, people who only do Delves, people who only do world content. It wouldn't help them, where they don't really have a way to target their loot. Now, for the open world, it's a little bit different, because like if you're doing the new event thing that came out, the Hollow Fall event, you do get to target your loot, right? You do the weekly thing, it gives you a currency, and you can buy the item that you need, for whether it's transmog or whether it's for your literal loot that you're wearing. you can target your loot that way. So I guess they don't have the problem. It's really just like Mythic Plusers and like Delvers and stuff like that are going to have this different problem where they can't target their loot. Like there's people probably who still, like if you do Delve, you might still want a Delve trinket that you've never seen on the hero track yet. This whole time, and you're like, well, I wish I could get that. And I think that's an interesting thing as well. And maybe that should just be on there too. And maybe they should have opened up the qualifications. Like if you've timed a 12, you can get a trinket for a Mythic Plus. If you have done a tier 11 delve, or you've done or a certain amount of tier 11 delves, or did a tier 11 delve in time, or something like that, right? Then you can, use the chips to unlock a delve trinket instead. Now, I actually do think that's actually a pretty good compromise as well, because while you're not getting that best in slot item from Gallywix Mythic, you're getting the best thing from the content that you're doing. Ultimately, there's a lot of good solutions, and I don't think what they implemented is a good solution. Probably the best way I've seen it summed up is it's kind of like a bait and switch. So from Dragonflight, you had these things, and then they're completely switched to a super oppressive style. So they were completely unoppressive in Dragonflight, and the War Within, these things switched to being very restrictive, right? And it just feels bad, and it's not communicated. I think ultimately something like this, if they were going to do it in the way that they did it, I think you have to almost put it in the game itself, like on the adventure guide. Strange the cartel chips, you write, and it says like strange cartel chips have been rumored to be about, and then like maybe you can click on it and it says these will be a form of bad luck protection or something like that, right? And that you could communicate these things in the game in that way, right? By using something like the adventure guide. It doesn't all like they like to like put things in with NPCs and stuff like that. You could do that too. You can make a quest to go to an NPC, the NPC that's eventually going to sell the cartel chips, and be like, and find a a clever way to word it to say that it's going to be bad luck protection instead of this gear. But that being said, like I was already talking about, even if you are going to do that, there should in theory be something for the Mythic Plus player or for the Delve player as well. That you could target a certain item. So that way, no matter what content you're doing, you can at least target the item from the content that you're doing. I think that would make a lot of sense, really. So if you, like I said, if you timed a plus 12 or whatever the key would be, right, then you could choose a trinket or whatever you want from Mythic Plus, right? Choose an item from Mythic Plus. And then, I think that just makes a lot more sense. I don't know. That seems, I don't think that's crazy. I also don't think it's crazy to say, well, you have to kill Mythic Gallywix to get Mythic Gallywix loot. I don't think that's crazy. And I'm not going to kill Mythic Gallywix for another probably couple months, towards the back end of the patch here. It's probably when I'll kill Mythic Gallywix. So I'm not going to get like a ton of use from these chips myself. We'll be on One Arm Bandit when these come out. So sometime short after killing One Arm Bandit, I'll be able to get the Mythic Best in Slots. So like this kind of thing is, kind of built more for a player like me, where I'm going to be getting it and using it for progression, as I get it. So, again, that's why I had a little bit more of a happy tone, when the news came out. So I wanted to get my thoughts out there and let people know that I understand the frustration and stuff. And I think there's a lot of good solutions and a lot of good compromise that could be made on this. They still have time to maybe change some stuff. They seemed open to it in their blue post. But I think ultimately, with the kind of backlash this got, I think it just makes it more likely that they don't bring this back in the future, which I think is sad because I love having deterministic ways to get loot. One thing I thought of is from your Great Vault, right? Have make it so you've 2 times per season you can buy something from the vault person, right? I don't know if the vault person still sells stuff like the gems and stuff like that. I can't remember which one it was. I think it might have been one of these people. Yeah, it was. I think it might have been this guy. So anyways, so the thing that you can buy like a socket to put on your gear and stuff, right? So make those cost like a ton of currency of those things. So like when you get nothing good from your vault and you just take the currency, right? Now, early on, you're going to be, getting gear because you need to gear up. But you could maybe start holding on to these currencies, and maybe for like 50 of them or something, like you'd have to math out the number to make sure that people aren't getting the best in slot items too soon. Whatever the math of the number would be, but a certain number of them, and then you can buy the dinar, the cartel chip, whatever you want to call it, with that vault currency, and then just get any item you want. So kind of like Dragonflight, but you have to kind of earn it a little bit more over time, maybe something like that, and you can get 2 items per season. I think that could maybe be a long-term solution to this, where it's kind of like the Dragonflight mode, where you can, so like you could get the Mythic Gallywix loot despite not doing Mythic Gallywix, but it's because you did, a bunch of keys or a bunch of stuff over time over the season. You built up this currency. That currency is powerful, and it allows you to purchase this cartel chip or this dinar, and then you can take that and then get that item, that coveted item that you want. I think something like that could be a very good long-term solution to this kind of problem. But unfortunately, like I said, I just think they might not do it again because it was so hated in this iteration of it. And this is going to be close to the iteration that they want. Like what I suggested is not going to be kind of what they want. They do want it to be like, I think the most likely thing that they would do if they bring it back is add options for Mythic Plus players, an option for Delve players. But yeah, I kind of like a cross between the Dragonflight way, but also maybe making you work a little bit for it. More like the Shadowlands way made you work a little bit for it at least. Maybe more than a little bit actually, but just kind of a compromise in between there, I think is actually a better system, where you do have to do something. If it was from the vault currency, you'd have to be making decisions. Well, do I want to get 6 vault currency, or do I want to get this upgrade? And there's be some people who just want the one item, and they would just keep taking the vault currency until they got their one item and got their best in slot weapon or whatever, which is kind of crazy because it would be over weeks. So you wouldn't be doing that if you're in any kind of like competitive environment or anything. You'd have to take your loot upgrades as you got them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but I know that what they decided so far isn't perfect. And I understand people being angry about it, even though for me personally, the system is fine, right? I can still understand and empathize with other people who the system isn't fine for and isn't the best for. I think ultimately the best thing you can do though is give suggestions of something better, or just flatly say, be a little bit more with us, like have people have sympathy for you, right? So instead of saying like really hateful things about it, I think what really goes a long way to say, hey, I'm a Delve player and these chips do nothing for me. I would love to have the best Delve trinket on the hero track, but I don't have it yet. And I would love to have a way to get that even, right? Or if you're a Mythic Plus player, I would love to get my pacemaker on Myth track that I still don't have, right? Which oddly enough I do have, but I would love to get my pacemaker on Myth track that I still don't have. Why can't I use cartel chips for that? And I think those are super valid things, right? And those are things that are going to make you feel sympathy for you, instead of like when you say things that are really nasty, people tend to just shut down and not listen to you very much. And I think a lot of the gaming community in general could learn that, but I saw a lot of that with this issue in particular, so I thought it was worth pointing that out, right? You're not gonna get very far when you're doing that kind of stuff, but you could be. But your cause is just, right? But you just have to go about it the right way. And if you go about it the right way, I think you get better results. So I'll end this one here. I just wanted to get my thoughts on this, even if hardly anybody watches or cares about this, because of that initial video, I was like so happy about the cartel chips, but it wasn't, it's just because that was my initial read on it, right? For me personally, right? And not thinking about, oh wow, Mythic Plus players aren't going to like this, or other people aren't going to like this. I was thinking, well, this is good for me. I think that's how most people think. But it would be, a self-reflection would be me being like, well, if I'm making videos about it, I should think about how other people feel about it as well. I think that would be a natural thing for me to get better at. So that'll be it for this one, guys. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, I encourage you to check out the Patreon. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.